Hello, welcome. Those that are new, those that are my existing tribe. As always, I'm going to continue with the truth about the hypersexual mask. If you've been following the series, you know we're dismantling the hypersexual mask and the truth one. And truth one showed you that sexuality can be armor and not empowerment. Now, here's the truth that's going to hit different. You can take off all your clothes and still be completely hidden. And that's why you keep feeling empty no matter how intimate you get. So let's expose this, all right? So the second truth about the hypersexual mask is this. When you can be physically naked but emotionally closed, you're not being intimate. You're being protected. And confusing sexual attention with being truly seen will leave you feeling empty no matter how much attention you get. Here's the deeper pattern underneath the hypersexual mask. You've learned to separate physical intimacy from emotional intimacy. To disconnect your body from your heart, to perform sexuality while keeping your actual self hidden. You can be naked physically, but you're completely covered emotionally. You can have sex, but you can't be vulnerable. You can perform desirability, but you can't show your pain. You can let someone close to your body, but not close to who you actually are. And you think this is protecting you. You think this is control. You think this is power, but really it's preventing you from experiencing the very intimacy you're craving. Because here's the truth, physical intimacy without emotional intimacy isn't actually intimacy. It's just physical. And physical without emotional leaves you feeling empty, disconnected, and used. Even when you're the one initiating, even when you're the one in control, think about what real intimacy actually is. It's not just physical closeness. It's emotional vulnerability. It's being truly seen, your wounds, your fears, your authentic self, and being accepted anyway. It's letting people or letting someone past your armor to who you actually are underneath. And that kind of intimacy requires emotional nakedness, not just physical nakedness. But when you're wearing the hypersexual mask, emotional nakedness feels far more terrifying than physical nakedness. You can take off your clothes, but you can't take off the mask. You can be sexual, but you can't be vulnerable. You can perform intimacy, but you can't experience it. Think about Megan Thee Stallion's pattern in relationships. Look at what's been public. Look at the pattern of physical involvement without emotional depth, of sexual relationships that don't translate into emotional intimacy. Let me take some water, guys. 1 second. Yeah, so I was saying, of sexual relationships that it doesn't translate into emotional intimacy, of keeping people at arm's length, even while being physically close. After the shooting, after the betrayal, after the trauma, of course she can't be emotionally vulnerable. Of course she can't be emotionally vulnerable. Of course she keeps people at a distance. Of course physical intimacy feels safer than emotional intimacy, because physical intimacy is controllable. You can perform it, you can maintain power, you can keep the mask on. But emotional intimacy requires taking the mask off, showing your wounds, being vulnerable, risking being hurt again. And when you've been hurt as badly as she has, when your vulnerability has been violated, let's say, when your trust has been betrayed, when your pain has been turned into public entertainment, emotional vulnerability feels impossible. So you stay physically available but emotionally closed. Sexually open but emotionally guarded, desired but not really known. And you tell yourself that, that's enough. That physical intimacy is intimacy. That being wanted is the same as being valued. That sexual attention is the same as being seen, but it's not. And deep down, it's not. So I want you to write a comment And don't lie, okay? Have you ever been lying next to someone after being intimate and felt more alone than if you were by yourself? Like your body was right there, but you weren't even in the room. Comment wasn't even there if you've ever been physically present but emotionally a million miles away. Because after every sexual encounter, after every performance, after every moment of attention, you still feel empty, still feel unseen, still feel lonely despite being surrounded by people who want you, but because they don't really want you. That's why they want your body, but they want the performance, they want the mask. And you can't feel truly seen when you're hiding behind a mask. You can't feel truly valued when you're being only valued for your sexuality. You can't really feel truly connected when you're keeping people at an emotional distance. And if you think about your own patterns, how many times have you been physically intimate with someone while keeping them emotionally distant? How many times have you had sex but couldn't be vulnerable? How many times have you performed sexuality but felt completely disconnected from yourself during it? And how many times have you gotten sexual attention and felt a temporary rush, but then felt empty after, like the attention didn't actually really feel anything? Like being desired didn't make you feel valuable. How many times have you seen someone physically but felt completely alone? Or be with someone physically, I should say, but felt completely alone? Like they were close to your body but nowhere near your heart. Like they were touching the mask but missing the person underneath. And if you're honest, you might recognize that you've been confusing physical intimacy with emotional intimacy, using sex as a substitute for vulnerability, that you've been performing sexuality while avoiding the very connection you're actually craving. And here's the painful truth: no amount of sexual attention will ever make you feel truly seen. No amount of desire, no amount of being desired, I should say, will ever satisfy the craving to be truly known, because what you're actually seeking isn't sexual, it's emotional. You don't need more people to want your body. You need someone to see your heart. And you don't need to be more desirable. You need to be just truly known. But you can't experience that while you're wearing the hypersexual mask, because the mask is designed to get attention while preventing people from actually seeing past your sexuality to who you actually are. So if you think about women who follow Megan, who emulate her, who believe that her hypersexual confidence is the path to empowerment. They see the attention she gets, the power she projects, the control she seems to have, but they don't really see the emptiness underneath, the loneliness of being desired but not known, the exhaustion of maintaining the performance, the wound that the armor is projecting or protecting. They're learning that sexual attention equals value, that desirability equals power, that hypersexuality equals confidence. And they're performing sexuality to get attention while feeling empty underneath the performance. They're being physically intimate while staying emotionally closed. They're confusing sexual validation with being truly seen, and they're going to spend years feeling empty, wondering why the attention doesn't fill them, never really realizing that what they're seeking can't be found through sexuality. It can only be found through vulnerability. And this is what makes the hypersexual mask so insidious. Is in our current culture, we've completely separated physical intimacy from emotional intimacy. We've normalized, if I can speak, we've normalized casual sex, hookup culture, physical availability without emotional connection. We've made it seem like physical intimacy without emotional intimacy is just normal and healthy, and empowering. But it's not. It's not. It's disconnecting. It's empty. And it's leaving an entire generation feeling lonely despite being more sexually active than ever, because humans aren't designed for physical intimacy without emotional connection. We're not wired to separate our bodies from our hearts. Yes, we can do it, we can perform it, but it leaves us feeling fragmented, disconnected, empty. Real intimacy, the kind that actually fills you, that makes you feel truly seen, that creates genuine connection, requires emotional vulnerability, not just physical nakedness. It requires letting someone see your wounds, not just your body, your fears, not just your confidence, your authentic self, not just your performance. And that's terrifying. Terrifying when you've been hurt. You know, when your vulnerability has been violated, when emotional openness has led to pain. So you stay behind the mask, you keep physical and emotional intimacy separated, and you perform sexuality while protecting your heart, but you also stay empty, unseen, lonely, despite the attention. Craving connection while preventing it. Think about what you're actually seeking when you're being hypersexual. When you're posting sexual content, when you're performing desirability, when you're being physically intimate, what are you hoping will happen? What are you hoping to feel vulnerable? Sorry, are you hoping to feel valuable? To feel seen? To feel worthy? To feel powerful? To feel less alone? And when you get the attention, when people respond to your sexuality, does it actually give you those things? Or does it give you a temporary rush that fades quickly, leaving you feeling just as empty as before? If you're honest, if you're truly honest, the attention probably doesn't even feel you, because sexual attention can't really feel an emotional need. That's not how it works. Physical intimacy can't satisfy a craving for emotional connection being desired, can't make you feel truly valued. Only emotional vulnerability can do that. Only being truly seen, heart, wounds, authentic self can make you feel known. Only emotional intimacy can create real connection, but that requires taking the mask off, being emotionally naked, not just physically naked, risking vulnerability instead of hiding behind sexuality. And that feels impossible when you've been hurt. So you stay behind the mask and you stay empty. This is the second truth. When you can be physically naked but emotionally closed, you're not being intimate, you're being protected. Physical intimacy without emotional vulnerability isn't connection, it's performance. That's the truth too. You know, physical without emotional intimacy. That's truth too. Physical without emotional intimacy. Without emotional isn't intimacy. That's what I meant to say. It's just performance. It's just performance. But here's the final truth that's going to shake everything. In part 4, I'm going to be revealing why building your worth on being sexually desirable is building on quicksand, and what happens when the one thing you've made your identity starts to fade. Truth 3 drops next, and this is the one that changes everything. So look out for that, guys. And as I always say, stay beautiful, stay connected, and stay conscious in the field.